Welcome to Seeing This. I'm Mike Ornelas, and today I'm honored to be joined by director Cristina Costantini and producer Alfie Koetter, whose documentary La Tierra del Valor, or in English, Home of the Brave, looks at a truly brave moment by singer Nezza when she performed the national anthem at Dodger Stadium in Spanish as a sign of community and protest against the ICE raids taking place across the country. Cristina, Alfie, welcome to the show.
Hi,
Thank you.
thank you so much for having us, Mike. An honor.
Absolutely. Congratulations on the film, and thank you for the film. Your film does an incredible job of documenting a pivotal moment in American history, which the history books may or may not cover, but it is monumental in fighting back against unjust actions by our governments and the organizations that serve them. How did this project get started, and did either of you know Nessa prior to going into all of this?
Well, first, thank you for all your kind words. We're Alfie and I have been trying to find hope and make meaning out of I think, barbarity and cruelty that is happening in our country right now. So we're, the film comes out of this feeling of great sadness that of seeing what's happening to the people around us, and especially, Alfie and I are the children of immigrants, so seeing what's happening to the kinds of people that came, like our families, that came to this country for this beautiful American thing, very American thing, which is the hope of a better life, of freedom that many of our families weren't able to have in their countries, and seeing it in real time being squashed before our eyes. Um, Alfie and I have been deeply, as so many in the country have been deeply disturbed by this. But we saw Nezza that day, No King's Day, as the ICE raids were hitting Los Angeles. We live in Los Angeles, and we saw that clip of her online, and we were deeply moved by it at that time. I think, for me, my family's from Argentina. Seeing somebody sing such an American song that I have such, visceral emotions of American pride with, but singing it in the language of my family that my grandparents speak, that my dad speaks, that it moved me in a very particular way. And then learning that she was told that she could sing it in Spanish, and then they took that out from her right at the last minute. It made me angry, it made me proud, and so we were incredibly moved by that. But it wasn't until we met Nezza in person, just by chance, that the film kind of came together. Um, and I can tell that story, but I also am realizing I'm totally monopolizing it and not letting my husband and producer talk at all. So,
But this
um,
is your story to tell. I mean, I cannot tell the story of your love for Diego
but
Luna.
but
That's
I know
yours.
I'll tell that story. But Alfie, I mean,
Got
do you
it.
want
Got him back here.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
you
oh my,
do. Perfect.
do you want to talk a little bit about why you were drawn to the story, and then I can tell the story about Dieguito?
I mean, everything that you've said, but this past summer in LA was it was very difficult, and so I think that um, while we were not directly affected by the raids, we have friends and people who we consider to be family who were. And to
Hmm.
see that happening and to bear witness to that, even in that proximity, was really difficult. And I think what was that much more difficult is figuring out, how you can respond to that. And,
Hmm.
you're hit with so many pieces of media by way of the news, Instagram, TikTok, and I think all of them are incredibly traumatizing because it is a traumatizing experience that everybody was going through. But in those moments, I think what was incredible about Nezza is it was like a small moment of hope that meant so much for so many people. And
Hmm.
it's a radical thing to do to inspire people in that way and to break the sort of cycle of those traumatic narratives that we were seeing. With that, I think it gave Christina and I both it inspired us in a lot of ways to think about like how can we contribute in the same way, um, by any means, big or small.
Yeah, and I think there was a time when the community was feeling so powerless, and we were looking around for our leaders and looking around for, like, who's going to stop this? Who's going to say something? Where are all of the corporations that were all like last Hispanic Heritage Month, they were like so proud to be allied with the Latino community. Where'd they go?
Right.
What,
Mhm.
the Dodgers has like all these Latin Pride nights. What are they doing? Like, these, and I think we realized it's not going to be these huge corporations that save us. It's not going to be the politicians. It's going to be the normal people, the everyday people, the nurses and the doctors who are protecting their patients, the restaurant owners who are standing up for their employees, who are not letting ICE in. These people are going to be the ones who are going to not only, save us and say like, this is where, the buck stops here, but they're the ones who are going to, get everybody else to move, get the people in power, the people with money, shame them into action. And throughout history, it's always been the regular people. It's always been
Mhm.
the normal people who are the ones who make these small changes, the Rosa Parkses, the Malalas. It's the people who say like, who reveal the absurdity of the situation. And I think Nezza did that. And so to the meeting story, as we've referenced, I have always had the biggest crush on Diego Luna since I was in high school, or
Who hasn't? Who
who
hasn't?
hasn't?
Yeah.
But like massive. And a friend of mine who was a producer at Jimmy Kimmel knew and remembered this, and was Diego Luna was guest hosting,
Right.
and she just called me up. I'd never been to the show before, but she called me up and she was like, "Hey, like Diego's hosting. Do you want to meet him? Like, I bet you could like shake his hand." And I was like, of course, I'm there. And so I didn't really meet Diego Luna that day, but I went to Nezza's dressing room and just said like, Latina to Latina, like I just wanted to thank you, and like I told her how much that meant to me. And then I was leaving, I kind of like passively was like, "Oh, and by the way, I'm a documentary filmmaker. If you ever need anything, let me know. I'd love to help you with anything." And then I left. And as I was leaving, her boyfriend ran up to me and was like, "Actually, he's a director himself and he's a really good shooter." And he was like, "I've been shooting this whole thing. Maybe there's something
Mm.
here." And we exchanged numbers. And a few days later, we met up for lunch and we just talked about it. And I looked at the footage and I was like, "Oh my God, this is an up close story of what bravery looks like in real time. That
Mhm.
Mhm.
bravery looks like fear and heartbreak and all of these things. Bravery is not a class of other kinds of people. Like we all have it in us to be brave in these kinds of moments where we're tested. And to me, I think I needed that kind of roadmap. I think about this a lot. Like, what am I going to do if I'm tested? What am I going to do now? How do I approach the fact that authoritarianism is encroaching and our democracy is collapsing? Like, what am I going to do? And I think I was very inspired by Nezza, and I thought like, this is what we need. We need to study the people who've done it and how they did it and what it looked like, and share that with other people.
But also inspired
The-
by, the way that Nezza and Kian, we met them and immediately there was a sort of like, we were very simpatico. I think we
Yeah.
saw in them a lot of the things that we would like to see in ourselves. And one of the
Mhm.
biggest things is like the way that they work, they don't wait for permission from other people. Like
Mhm.
Nezza didn't wait for somebody to give her the green light to sing in Spanish. They didn't like wait for somebody to tell them they could make a music video. They just like make it themselves. So
Mhm.
meeting and being around people like that afterwards, this short, there was nobody telling us we could make it. But
Yeah.
walking away from spending that time with them, we were just like, "Oh, we got to do this." These are people who can inspire, who have inspired us in so many different ways, and a lot of that is like their work ethic and their ability to just like get stuff done. They're
Yeah.
incredible.
It's those little moments, like you said, you don't anticipate anything happening when you go to, the set of the Jimmy Kimmel show, and just a chance interaction. And it's like meant to be, it's like in the
Yeah.
stars,
Mm.
if you will, as far as this moment and what it needs. And I really appreciate how the documentary clarifies a lot of the specifics that the headlines gloss over. Like you were talking
Mhm.
about,
Mhm.
the Dodgers never told Nessa that she couldn't sing in
No.
Spanish, and she prepared to do so the entire time until the day of, when she was informed, like just so casually. And there's such a microaggression in the way it's
Yeah.
captured as well,
Mm.
that's no,
It's
we're
it's
gonna sing
also
it in English.
right, right. It's also a very familiar thing to me, like the feeling of somebody in power. That is how power actually works. It's just like a kind of nice lady asking you to do
Right.
something as though it's, like the implication of it is huge. It's not standing up for this community that's being attacked right now, but the kind of like quotidian, just like, oh, by the way, I don't know if you didn't get the memo, but we're not going to do it. It's like she's asking you to like, actually put your jacket over there. The tone of her voice. And
Right.
I also wanted to show that like this is how actual power works. Like it is in these small moments where people are asked to stand down and not do the right thing. The power works in such a kind of normal, everyday authoritarianism. Like, they're not singing it in Spanish because the Dodgers are scared of what that would mean. Their ownership is allied with, the MAGA people, even though their fans are Latino. Like, they are, they are letting what's going on in the country control their bravery as an organization, and the way that it's just delivered so casually by this like producer woman. And I don't blame her. She is acting on behalf of this organization who's asking her to do this. So it's not her that I'm upset with. It's the larger organization,
Of
and
course.
but it is annoying the way that she says it, for sure. Sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all. I mean, it's a Trojan horse of politeness, and how you're alluding to
Oh,
like these
exactly.
organizations have
Yeah.
these, Latino Heritage Night. I mean, it's again another Trojan horse to try to show solidarity, if you will. But when it comes down to it, there's crickets, right? And
Right.
I'm curious, with an organization like the Dodgers, how do you approach trying to get a comment from them or any kind of involvement from them? Was there any hope that you would get participation, or did you go in assuming there wouldn't be?
No, I mean, my feeling, I was a journalist for many years, and we didn't make any new allegations in our film. That's stuff that's been reported on, and they have consistently said, which we say in the film, that Nezza's invited back, and that's it. So, we didn't approach them for comment. I don't think they would have a comment,
Mm,
but this is, a documentary about what happened at that time more than it is like a piece of
sure.
reporting that's uncovering new allegations. So that was our, but we would love to hear from them if they have thoughts, and would include them in the film. But they have been asked many, many times by hundreds of journalists what they think about this, and they've been pretty consistent in their answers.
Mhm.
I'm curious, because Nessa's actions on the field, as I mentioned, weren't just a sign of protest, but also a sign of hope and the necessary requirements we all have to push back against these things that are happening.
Yeah.
And this film acts in the same way. Alfie, maybe I'll ask you, when you were putting this together and involved in everything it takes to put a production like this together, was there any fear of repercussion, within the industry, within, just kind of what it'll look like as far as the powers that be? And if so, how do you push forward beyond that?
I mean, I think that perhaps in a subconscious way there were thoughts of, how might this be censored? What sort of opportunities might there not be for it based off of the subject matter? But I also think that given where, Cristina and I come from, like Cristina mentioned, we're both the children of immigrants. The importance of it was too great to allow any of those voices to get too loud. And we also built out an entire team, from ourselves to our DP, to our editor, to our composer. It was all a family of immigrants who were working on this. And so I think we had a sort of collective sense of urgency for the importance of this story that propelled it forward without any sort of like static getting in our way. And of
Mhm.
course, there are now that it's done, you sort of like consider that when it's playing in front of people. Maybe for the first time, the thought struck me when we were in Park City playing it, like, oh, maybe this like won't land in the same way with certain people. Um,
Mhm.
but I, I think despite any of those reservations, the urgency and importance of it is greater than any of those anxieties.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, I think like there might not be as many homes for this film as there would have been 5 years ago.
mm,
All the corporations are scared. So, but I think like, yeah, that wasn't really a concern for us because we weren't doing it for money, and if the whole thing loses money, fine. It feels
Yeah.
more important than that. So, yeah, everybody was working below their rates and doing it for this is we have this feeling of urgency to get something out and to find our heroes right now. I think that's what really like everyone who's not MAGA needs right now are heroes. So
As you're talking, no lie, I got some goosebumps there, just because I mean, I think that is the core importance of filmmaking, and all filmmaking, but as well as documentarian filmmaking, is like you do it for the purpose, for the cause, because it's needed more so than the glamour of it, or
Mhm.
the payment, or whatever the case is. It's about social justice. And as someone that grew up in LA, or the suburbs of LA, I understand the chokehold the Dodgers have on not only the Latin community or immigrant community, but like the community at a whole, even beyond Los Angeles. So I couldn't understand how there wasn't more protest by the masses, like, as this was happening. So I have a bit of a philosophical question, which I think you've kind of alluded to a little bit, but what do you think is needed to tear down this curtain, or to see the Trojan horse for what it is, so the masses can remove the veil, see what's happening, and see what's required from everyday people? Like, what is it, do you think, will finally have people acknowledge and realize what's happening?
well, I was it's a great question. Minnesota gave me hope that
Mm.
there is a line.
Mm.
I think we've had like this, our civil liberties have been taken away from us very slowly at a drip speed. So it's kind of like, what is it, frogs in a boiling pot? Or we are in that boiling pot right now. And I think we need enough people to get angry enough and to organize. We need heroes. We need to get people to show up to vote. Um, and I think we need to realize like there is no plan B. Like this is the last country, this is our country. And, tens of thousands of people have already died. Tens of thousands more will die if we continue down this path. And, the Latino community needs to we need to organize. We need to find our heroes. We need to, help each other. I think I've realized like, oh, nobody's going to save us. We're going to save ourselves. Um, but I think a lot needs to happen, and I'm hopeful. There are things that are giving me hope. Yeah, and Minneapolis gave me hope. Most of those people out there were not Latinos who were protesting. They
Right.
were, white people putting their bodies on the line, which I think that gave me a lot of hope that there are good people who are going to stand up and, you know, stand up for our country.
Well, I think with Minneapolis, I think in so many ways they are inspiring, just the sort of like collective urgency that they feel, that they're out there in negative 20-degree weather, standing up for what's right. I think, an unfortunate reality of Minneapolis are the lives that were lost in Renee Good and Alex Preddy. I think for a lot of people, they're able to dissociate and keep it in the abstract
Mm,
because people who are being affected don't look like them. And
mhm,
and I think with Alex Preddy and with Renee Good, to put it sort of short and simply to the point, these are like white people who got
mhm,
murdered. And for a lot of people who are able to not look directly at the screen, they were now seeing people who look like them. And the narrative on the right was sort of the ambition of it was in any way possible to tell these people like actually they weren't like you, they were
Mm.
actually different. They're not you. But I think
mhm,
for many people, they were seeing people who look like them get affected directly in the worst possible way by everything that's happening now.
mhm,
And I think that pulled back the veil for a lot of people
mhm,
in a really unfortunate way. But I think, if and when this comes to affect other cities, I think people are going to be looking at it with a bit more clarity than they had
mhm,
before.
Yeah, I think, that next level of consciousness is to look beyond kind of the established borders, if you will, of race and background, and that it's
mhm,
more of have and have nots, you know, the
Mhm.
power and the powerless. And I think that's an excellent point. It's like our friend Zach De La Rocha from Rage Against the Machine says, if we don't do action now, we'll settle for nothing later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've been incredibly gracious with your time, and I truly am thankful for your documentary. I hope everyone gets an opportunity to see it. One question I like to ask everyone: what is a underseen film that you would like to recommend for people to check out, whether in the same vein of your documentary or otherwise? Is there something that you feel more people should have on their radar and check out?
I love the documentary Dick Johnson is Dead, and
Mm,
I don't know, it's from like
mm.
2020, and to me it like grapples with some of the big questions of life and death, but does it so in like such a playful way and in such a like cinematic way that I'm just always drawn to that film, and I don't think enough people have seen it, so that's my answer.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
similar,
added to my list.
Mhm.
maybe similar vein, but Andre is an Idiot is one of the
Okay.
greatest documentaries I've seen in a while. And maybe similarly, it is, it's a dark movie. It is about grappling with death, but told with an immense amount of joy. And maybe in the same way that we speak about this movie, like the most radical thing you can do is inspire hope or happiness. I think that
Mhm.
movie does it incredibly well in the face
Mhm.
of just like the worst possible thing somebody can experience. One of the
Yeah.
funniest and saddest movies I've ever seen.
I
Yeah.
love that. That actually did come across my radar. And you know, I ask this question always, like for my listeners, viewers, to be able to see things they haven't seen. But it's being selfish. It's just my own
Yeah.
watch list that I need to add to.
Awesome.
Uh, I love the concept that you guys are talking about, and in closing there, inspiring hope. You know, we often feel so vulnerable, helpless, but you
Yep.
know, we have the ability within our communities to inspire hope. And like you said, that small gesture of singing in Spanish with a language that is so familiar to so many people around the world, not just the country. And you know, we even saw some of that hope from the Super Bowl halftime show with what
Exactly.
Bad Bunny did. You know,
Yes.
I think it's incredibly powerful. So I thank you both for your time and for your film. How can people keep up with what is going on in your careers and also see this film?
Well, you could follow us on social media. I'm xtinatini and Alfie is SLK Koetter.
That's right.
Um, but we are the film will be out somewhere and it will be able to be seen for free.
Love it.
But I don't think we can say too much about it yet, but it's
I
coming
love it.
out.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's coming out.
Awesome. Costantini. I'm going to get it right on the first try one of these days. Alfie, Koetter, thank you both so much for your time for your film. And thank you again for joining today.
Thank you, Mike. It
Thanks,
was a
Mike.
pleasure.